over again is that just, hang in there. And then you handle it normally. And only when you handle it normally, you can solve it.
Welcome to Wadhwani Foundation CEO video series. Today we have with us Mr. Dhruvil Sanghvi, CEO and co-founder of LogiNext, a bespoke solution provider in the logistics space in the organized logistics sector. Welcome, Mr. Sanghvi.
Thank you.
Is this your first visit to Bangalore?
Not really. Bangalore is or has become a Makkah of startups, so there's no way out. I visit Bangalore twice a month. Usually it mostly is investor meetings or client meetings because a lot of large e-commerce and on-demand companies are here. Plus a lot of supply chain companies are based out of Chennai. So I route it via Bangalore. But yeah, Bangalore is probably a couple of times a month.
How did you start up LogiNext? And what was your reason for the name LogiNext?
Well, it was exactly 2 years back when we had this thought, me and my co-founder Manisha. We used to work for larger management consulting companies. So I used to work for Deloitte, she used to work for IBM, and we used to advise our customers on similar set of issues in logistics and big data analytics and so on in the US. Of course, it's a much organized market. Clients used to spend millions of dollars there. So I remember, one of our customers had spent about $500 million just on 1 6-month projects to optimize the last mile deliveries and route optimization.
$500 million.
And I was shocked, and I was surprised by myself that, hey, I'm handling such large budgets. I'm a part of this huge team. I'm making such a big impact. And then whenever I used to come to India, there's a whole new e-commerce wave was coming back in 2013. And on-demand companies were evolving. There's a whole buzz of logistics, supply chain coming up. But the way they used to operate in the backend was surprisingly, and it was more of a shock. Because there was no processes in place, there was no technology in place at all. So that's where we thought that, hey, why is there such a huge gap? Some of the areas people have accepted that, Western world and India has gaps, and pretty much that applies to all the sectors these days, and people crib about that fact. But we wanted to make an impact, and then we always had this mindset that, okay, we want to do something on our own, and we want to move ultimately back to India. We want to contribute to our, the next India story, and so on. And at that time, we thought this is the right moment when, the market is hot, the ecosystem is building up, investments are not that difficult, and plus there was a huge, above everything, there was a huge need of doing all these things because people, companies are all fed up with unorganized way of doing logistics.
True.
So we thought, why not to take Indian logistics to the next level? And that's how this LogiNext came up. So it was not a very glamorous story around it, but it's just a name we picked up at back then. In fact, we also spent significant amount of time in designing the logo. That's typically the first time entrepreneur mistakes people do, where you spend more time building your logo than you spend building your business.
Right, because you think that it's for a lifetime.
For a lifetime.
Yeah. Quite a logical name for LogiNext, I must say. But definitely looking back on the things that you were sharing with us, Manisha Raisinghani, your co-founder, and yourself were studying at Carnegie Mellon University and were also working in the US and then moved back to India. You've also set up office in US and in Mumbai, in India. Yeah. How would you see the challenges and the enablers for Indian entrepreneurs in the Indian soil?
So when we started, it was a very small setup we had in the US because it was obvious that we were in the US, so we wanted to start something while we are working there, and that's why we got registered as a C Corp and followed all the legalities there. But we quickly found out that a lot of solutions are already there in the US market, and the need is not that big because processes are defined, tech is defined. Right. It's a large market anyways. Why not to make an impact where it's really needed? So that's how we moved. So that was the primary difference between these two markets, and that's how we moved. And right now, most of our operations and everything is in India itself. Challenges wise for Indian entrepreneurs on Indian soil, if I have to call out, I think the biggest challenge is that is that especially when you move back, most entrepreneurs in India are India based, of course. But when they go out and then they learn something and move back, the biggest challenge that we at least faced was that people were questioning, right? That okay, wow, you moved back. So that's the kind of questions you get asked, and then you get surprised, and why am I being asked this question? And then you don't have any supporting at that point, right? Because you are just hardly starting. You don't have any, any facts, any success around your company, around yourself. So that's the most difficult part, to deal with the social stigma around the startups and all. But again, this was 2 years back or 1.5 years back when we moved back. Now these days I'm seeing that people are adopting to this, even parents, entire social circle, friends, everybody's so supportive. And there's a new support system being developed from entrepreneurs to entrepreneurs, right? For example, we are also kind of incubating 2 startups within LogiNext. So, although we are not as big of a name yet, but still we are able to do it. So we have few hours as as founders, we have a couple of hours extra every week. And we thought, hey, why not to just, spend in building and helping others, which we could not get at that time. And this is something also we have learned from other larger startups. Like, so if you see Zomato, Ola, Flipkart, these companies invest actively, and they have a whole division which helps startups. They motivate their employees to start up after quitting, all those sort of things. So that's something we can't do as of now due to limitation of resources, but at least from our advising and mentorship point of view, we do that. Also, we are partnering with, Your Story, NASCOM, all these TIE, all these organizations which are, and of course now Wadhwani Foundation, where they are very, very active in terms of encouraging entrepreneurship and helping them out. So the challenges and the social aspect is getting quickly eliminated out of India, and even the investment scenario is booming right now. And the market is great. I remember when we had cracked our first customer, it was very, very difficult because nobody wanted to work with startups, But now if you see even the largest of the enterprises and the most traditional of the companies who have made it big over decades, not even years, they also want to, come and work with startups. So they show their inbound interest to you that, hey, what are you doing? I want to work with you. So that's the, beautiful support system India is building right now.
So India is actually the place of action today for all entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
And it's just happening here, and now it's the time.
Totally. I mean, when I look back, I feel moving back to India was the best decision we made. Because this is the right time to be in India. I mean, it couldn't get better. So, I mean, if somebody's waiting to start now, I mean, this is the right time. It cannot get better than this.
Sure. While we spoke to us about various aspects of the startup in India, there's one thing which we thought our entrepreneur aspirants might be very interested in finding out from you. This is more around the funding. How did you secure the funding for your company in India? Did you meet any challenges there, or was it easy? How is it working through in India for funding?
It is always challenging. I mean, it's never an easy task to do. But there's a logical flow you have to follow. A lot of people, they try to miss, if they miss this logical flow, then it becomes even more challenging. And the logical flow is that you have to build your product and basic traction first. And once you have that, there's plenty of smart money to be invested in you. But if you try to raise money first and then build the business, it just doesn't, it doesn't add up. And in that case, you get stuck because you wait for money to come to build your product and business, and the money will only come when you build that. So it's kind of a deadlock.
Right.
So the first thing that we did was, of course, we had the virtue of our own savings. So we invested, and I'm happy to share numbers also. I mean, we had a budget of about $70,000. That's something we had said, out of our savings, we can put aside this much money to help us survive in the first 6 to 12 months. And by that time, we would have built our product and basic traction, which we can showcase to a potential investor, and then he'll be interested. Fortunately, it worked out very well in the same budget. So we spent about 30 lakhs in total as a company. We burned that amount in the first 9 months, and by that time we raised our first round of investment. And the first round of investment came about 8 months back. So yeah, that's where we are.
The first round of investment actually came from the India Angel Network, isn't it?
Indian Angel Network, yes.
Quite close to about 50 million, is that right? Or is that number way off the mark?
No, so this is $500,000.
Okay.
So about 3 to 4 crore rupees.
Okay. So
but there's a lot of media mentions around it, so you can just pick some of these numbers from them. But I mean, there's always an undisclosed amount as well of investment along with that one. But all in all, I mean, the initial investment is the key part that I've seen entrepreneurs struggling with, right? Because what is the first penny? I mean, how much do I start with? 2 lakh rupees, 5 lakhs rupees, 10 lakhs, 1 crore? Well, that's the most confusing part, because you don't have any data point to analyze on how much money I'm going to need. right? Everything is an assumption. When you start on the day one, you don't have anything. You don't have people. It's just you. And probably if you are the only founder, it's just you. That's all you have, and you have to make concrete assumptions, and that's where your previous experience helps a lot, and a good education helps a lot. So if you are from premier schools, if you have seen the world, if you have been on the business side as well, that helps a lot. And that was a good mix we had internally. So both of us were from tech backgrounds and then had moved to management consulting. So we had seen both sides of the world, which helped in projecting these costs in a more accurate way. It can never get accurate because there's always some mistakes you're going to make, some corrections will always happen. But the more accurate it gets, the better it is for the company and for the founder.
Right. And having a small sum of money is also based on the product idea, because if your product, what it requires is something you should be able to assess and to take it so far that you will at least have something shippable or something that is showcaseable, and along with that what you need to do in terms of some customer traction.
Absolutely.
That's what you're talking
about. Absolutely. That's always the case, and it will totally depend on what kind of business you are building, right? So if it's a pure software play, and if it's a mobile app, which is simple enough, but the idea is path breaking, then you can start with, as low as what, 2-3 lakhs rupees as well. There's nothing stopping you. Or all you need is your computer and a couple of guys with you, and you just start that way. If it's a very operationally intensive business, you need to hire a fleet of people, or maybe fleet of cars in case of if it's a delivery solution, if it's more of mobility kind of a space where more physical touch is required, it's more money. And some businesses are very, very extremely capital intensive, and that's why usually people don't try to disrupt those areas, because you cannot invest so much capital on day one, and that's why those areas are all usually disrupted by larger organizations only, because they have the capital to disrupt that.
True.
So yeah, it will totally vary on that. Other couple of things. So I was recently talking to one of our classmates who is now looking to start. So he just he called me last week that hey Dhruvil, I saw your story. It looks very interesting. I'm also and you recently went through this entire thing. So I want to ask you on how we start. And his question was, what are the features you need in your minimal product, like the minimal viable product, right? MVP. What all do you need? And that is this question is very, very tricky, and is one of the most important questions that a founder has to address, because how many features, how many offering, how many products you want to launch on day one will define the amount of resources you need and how much focused you are, and how easy or difficult it is to sell, because the more you build, the more difficult it is to sell. So that balance is the most important part, and it totally varies from business to business. And as long as a founder can crack this question very well, I think a lot of other questions can get solved immediately after that.
When did you start your entrepreneurship journey?
I started, I don't have a lot of entrepreneurial background myself. Of course, my family is all my fathers and forefathers all were entrepreneurs themselves. So I'm not the first generation entrepreneur, but I myself did not have any experience into startups, running businesses. Although our family business is doing great, I never wanted to go there. So I was always pushed by my family that you have to ultimately go there. But then I somehow convinced that let me just try out something else. Let me just give it a shot. But yeah, so no experience from a startup point of view. I was 24 when we started this one, so fairly young, yes. And yeah, don't have a lot to talk about on the pre startup before startup experience. But one thing that I always see is that it's not required. One question I always get asked is that are you a born entrepreneur, or did you ever feel that you were a born entrepreneur? And I always have this answer that everybody's a born entrepreneur, right? Humans are like that. Entrepreneurship is about taking risks with limited amount of resources, and that's what humans do always, right? We do take risks, and we always have limited resources. So it just depends on how you mold yourself, how you experience and how you create situations to be more favorable to your business case and your life, and then slowly you just slip into the startup world and you don't even realize it.
Any observations from your side on starting up relatively young? Is there anything that you noticed, a lot of things which worked in your favor, maybe a charming smile, maybe being young, and maybe age did not work in your favor sometimes too. So what were your observations starting up relatively young?
My first experience I remember about being young was when I was consulting for Deloitte in the US, and I remember that there was a lot of So we had hierarchies where people get promoted and then they get to a partner level, and partner is the most level in the company. Okay. So everybody wants to become a partner ultimately. And then there was some young partners, some partners which made it big in 12 years. Somebody made to a partner in 20 years. So everybody wanted to be in that fast track, where they want to be a young partner. And then I was talking to a young partner who was just 33 years old, and he was a partner at Deloitte. And he said that it's sometimes, it creates issue because customers don't trust you. Like when they see gray hair, it's not right or wrong. It's just very human that humans or elders trust elders more. It's not about respect or credibility, but it's just that the natural feeling of trust comes when you see gray hair. And that's what he used to face a lot. And then when I started working with my customers, I had the same feeling. And that was my first feeling at Deloitte. And I took that as a learning. So when we started LogiNext, we knew that this was gonna come because our target segment and our target audience is not end consumers, they are enterprise customers. And enterprises are always made up of matured, experienced people, right? And who have been doing their business for years, and they have made it big by doing it that way. And now you are coming and challenging them, and you are trying to disrupt something. So it's not going to be very easy to just come and tell somebody that, hey, your way of doing business is not right. Do it this way. So that friction always comes. But yeah, and that's where your product comes at rescue. When they really see that, okay, what you have built is really great, immediately people start trusting you. So that's why from our business model point of view, we used to offer free trials in the beginning, which everybody does. It's a very normal part of being a startup. And gradually we could, in just first 6 months, we could convert those free trials into paid trials. And now we are going into a space where we don't do any trials. So that's the level of credibility we are building. Even being a young company, being run by young people, we still have the credibility in the market because we proved it by our product. And not by showing investments or showing gray hair and stuff like that. So yes, there's going to be challenging always, but you have to have that confidence. You have to have that amazing product to showcase, which is really value add, and then people will believe you.
Today, the technology startup seems to be the biggest attraction to the global youth. So how does that, as an entrepreneur, what are you seeing?
There's a huge trend that we are observing. Especially in the people who are fresh out of the college, that they want to work for startups now, which was not the case earlier. I remember when I graduated, I did not even know what startups are, and now, and of course, I was not always the number one and all, but I also remember a lot of my friends who went to IITs, when they even startups was not a cult at that time. Now people, it's more fancier, and just more than being fancy, people want to really disrupt everything. I mean, when you hear ideas, being started on different notes every day. So that whole new innovative and disruptive mindset is coming. From a hiring point of view, we try to hire these kind of people also only. So we try to hire entrepreneurs. Okay. Because they are the ones who can actually constantly keep on challenging themselves and keep on challenging us as founders as well. So that's the kind of culture we have, which is sometimes very aggressive because not everybody likes to be constantly pushed out of their comfort zone. But that's the kind of culture we are building. I mean, we like it that way, and that's the kind of people we have who are more entrepreneurial, more risk taking, and more of the people who keep on challenging themselves and the people around them. That helps us constantly evolve the product, the business, and the way we do it. And that's what has become our USP from a cultural point of view. So that's number one. Secondly, I've seen that especially in the tier 1 schools in India, most of the people are now wanting to join startups, which was not the case. True. And it has just happened in last 2-3 years. And even in tier 2, tier 3 cities also now people are getting educated. Even their parents are getting educated because for parents for a child from a small town in India, it's not very easy to immediately move to a very large and aggressive environment in a bigger city. True. And their parents are always protective about it, which is obvious. But now they are also getting educated about it. That's great for my child, and he should be doing it rather than should he be doing it or not. So that's the shift we are seeing.
CEOs, entrepreneurs, Sadhgurus all talk about books or mentors, who transformed them and their lives. Do you have any mentors or books that you want to tell our young aspiring entrepreneurs about?
Well, I'm not a very avid reader as such, but a couple of books on the startups that I've read are so one of them being this 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, and another one is by Ben Horowitz, which is Hard Thing About the Hard Things. Both are around their own startup experience. These are one of the biggest startup founders and investors of all time, based in Silicon Valley right now, and have invested in like large companies like Facebook and all. So their experiences are the ones based on which the entire startup ecosystem in the world is built. And when you hear and read about their experiences, and when you see that, oh my God, the same thing is happening to me, it feels so good and so motivating. And then you can start connecting the dots. And then when you read the future and how they made it big, you kind of have a path to follow. That if I do this would likely be the outcome. So these are the two books that I would suggest people reading. There's a lot of other startup books out there. And I have a lot of other founder friends who are very avid readers, and they read a bunch of books. So yes, always read. Personally, for me, more than books, it's always people. So I try to make people my books. So whenever on a Sunday evening, if I'm free, if I want to just go out and have extra couple of hours to relax, I try to meet somebody who is in the ecosystem, which I don't know at all. And that's why cities like Bombay, Bangalore, Delhi are amazing to live in, because you find such people very easily. And so, like, I recently met somebody, on an airplane, like a couple of weeks back, while going from Bangalore to Bombay, and he is an investment banker, and worked with one of the largest investment banks of all times. And he also writes about mythology, and he also is going to start his startup about writing mythological books from an investment banking point of view, and God knows. It's a very complex and weird phenomenon, but it was amazing to talk to him during that 2-hour flight. And then I met him over a Sunday for a coffee, and we had so many common things between us. So and then he shared his journey on how it is different to start a publishing startup, because it's not a tech startup, right?
Yeah,
I mean, everybody talks about a tech startup. What about a publishing startup? So that's how I share my knowledge with people, and I gain more knowledge from other people who are into similar areas. So that's what I typically do.
You spoke about mentors that you really meet off chance, and then how you use that opportunity to build on it and learn more from them, and also them learning more from you. How about any mentors you've had from your university, and where you met your co-founder?
Manisha and I met at Carnegie Mellon. We were classmates there, and we had a lot of courses. We had a lot of competitions where we participated together. So we had worked and studied there, and then we also got a chance to work together on a common client in our professional lives as well. So we had a very good comfort level there, and then when the idea clicked, and she was the obvious first one who I would bounce off the idea against. So that happened, and then we were very much on the same page. We had the same kind of feelings, being in the same domain, same education, same lifestyle. So that was very, very helpful behind starting this journey as co-founders. From a mentorship point of view, I remember when we had first thought about this idea exactly 2 years back in 2013, July-August time frame, we had read that mentors are a must for a startup. So we started looking for our mentors. And this is very similar to how anybody would do. And then the first obvious choice was that. That few professors that we know from school, and then few partners from our organizations where we can reach out to. Now we could not reach out to our partners because we used to work for those companies, so it was very awkward, and these were very corporate cultures we had at that time. So it was not very easy to connect to these people and find out about their journeys. So we thought, why not to find similar people from the college? And then the first person we talked to was Mark DeSantis. He used to be our professor for entrepreneurship, coincidentally. So he was the first one that let's talk to him. And he, in fact, after we graduated in 2011, he also had started his own startup. He's a very senior guy. He also was Entrepreneur of the Year in Pittsburgh, in Pennsylvania, in 2009. He also had run for mayorship in Pittsburgh, so very well connected guy that way. So he was like an ideal case to go to, and we were like friends to him because he had taught us all these things. We reached out to him and he said, just come over to Pittsburgh. We were in New York at that time, so we were like, just fly over to Pittsburgh once, and we'll have a dinner together, and I'll hear your idea, and then we'll see what to do. So we went there, we pitched the idea to him, and he just like totally ripped us apart. This is not gonna work, this is this bad, that bad, and a lot of feedback, constructive criticism he had, and we were so demotivated after that. And then next morning again we had a meeting, and then he encouraged us against all those things and how to fill those gaps. And that's how that was the first connect we had with him, that where he can actually be a formal mentor. After that we had a monthly or once in 2 months kind of a touch points with him, just to update him on our progress. And that that relationship evolved over a few months, and today where we are, where he is formally on our board of advisors. We have weekly touch points for him, and he's our only go-to guy where about the questions and problems we still face, which we can't share with anybody else.
Right.
Some things we can't share with clients, some things we can't share with team, some things we can't share with investors. But Mark is a guy where we just can pick up the call and ask anything, be it any silly question or anything. And then he has also been on the similar journey recently, because his company is into energy analytics.
Okay.
And they are Series B funded by GE Capital, which is the world's largest corporate capital arm.
True.
So of his segment. So all these things combined, it makes him the best mentor, and the relationship has evolved over time. So from an advice point of view, when somebody is looking for a mentor, always go with somebody who you are comfortable with, or if you are not, just reach out to him and then develop and establish that comfort level for both the parties before you call them a mentor, because sometimes that relationship might not work.
True.
Because of the area of expertise, your knowledge and your tracks may change also, which may not align with that person in future. So in that case, I would suggest, or I would advise that every founder should spend few months with that mentor on a weekly or on a monthly basis, updating them, getting the advice, and see how the comfort level it is for him and for them, and then make it to a formal level. Okay. And same applies to, I think, co-founders also. I've hardly seen people going online and finding the co-founders and they made it big. Usually co-founders just
there is no Bharat matrimony, online matrimony for co-founders.
There are a lot of them. There's a lot of
for co-founders as well.
A lot of them, yeah. There's a lot of platforms that you can find. One of them is called founder.com or cofounder.com.
Oh.
It's in the US, but yeah, there are a lot of platforms. People find co-founders also, but I think it's more by luck than by planning. Right. Co-founder, that connect has to happen. That same frequency, and then in the beginning frequency always matches, but the real test is when the tough times come, and if you can survive together through those tough times, that's when you can conclusively say that, okay, this is the best co-founder I would have got.
Correct. So in terms of co-founders, you're saying connect is important, and in terms of the mentor, somebody who can destroy you with constructive criticism and also help you with all the inputs later and motivate you to achieve what you want
Absolutely.
to do. So that's the key for the mentor and the co-founder. That was awesome to hear that story from you. The next question I have for you is about your own personal journey and your own personal transformation as a person. Have you seen anything that has changed in you during your entrepreneurial journey? Your attitudes, your outlook to life, how you view people now? What are the things that have changed?
Okay, that's a tough one. But the biggest thing that has changed in me personally is that I've been more patient now. I always used to carry a very aggressive personality, and tolerance levels were very, very low. But now they have increased positively. So that's one positive impact. Apart from that, yes, I've never worked this hard in my entire life. So this is that's something I've heard from every single founder I meet. Right?
Correct.
This is probably running a startup is the most difficult thing you would have done in your life. So it would change a lot of things. Yeah, it would make it softer. It will make you harder. It will make you it will help you strike that balance on where to be hard or when to be hard, and where to be soft and when to be soft.
Right.
That is something that it just teaches you.
So you've transformed in lovely ways, but what are the habits that you carry from your younger days which has helped you in good stead, or which has kept you in good stead during this journey, which has helped along or enabled you in your entrepreneurial journey?
I think staying organized is one thing I would say. I have kind of an OCD around that. If I have to call out, I am very, very organized. I cannot be even my desk. You would never find it untidy. Even my, same applies to my personal life also. My room is always, neat and clean, and that's how I like to keep my company as well. It has to be always organized. There has to be a discipline in life, and there has to be, a certain level of, again, an organized way of doing things in general, for not just for you, but how you lead, how you coach people, and then how people adopt to these processes, right? So everything, and then how you convert not so disciplined and not so organized people and processes into organized ones,
Right.
And at the right time, in the right manner. All those kind of things is something that helped me a lot, because that's how I've always been.
So staying organized is the key, you're saying. And any words of wisdom for young aspiring entrepreneurs that you have as closing statements?
I would just pass on the advice I always used to get from Mark. Always hang in there. There's going to be ups and downs. It's a roller coaster ride. Especially in the early days, you may feel that okay, it's not going to work out. And we have seen a lot of mornings where where I wake up and I call up Manisha and I say, Manisha, it's not working out. Let's just call it off. I don't know if it will work out. And then we call Mark and we share our emotions, and then he says just hang in there. Tomorrow will be a beautiful day, and then tomorrow actually becomes a beautiful day because you work hard towards solving a problem. So yeah, just just surviving through this roller coaster ride is the most important advice I could ever give to anyone.
So survive through the roller coaster ride, and entrepreneurship is a journey that's going to be a roller coaster with lots of ups, lots of downs, and exhilaration at the end of the ride. That's the message from Dhruvil. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dhruvil.
Thank you.